You're scrolling. A pixelated rat is dancing to an AI voice saying, "Go, little rock star." The next frame, a frog with laser eyes and text that reads, "Capitalism did what?" And somehow you laugh, or maybe you stare completely bewildered. If this chaos makes perfect sense to you, you might be Gen Z. If it doesn't, you are definitely not alone. This isn't just about a funny video. As we explored in our last series, social media is constantly evolving, and with it the language of laughter itself is changing. But the humor of Gen Z often feels like an inside joke you weren't invited to. Today, we're cracking the code. Welcome to Inside Joke Nation. This digital native humor is now a primary form of communication for a generation that, according to recent data, spends over 3 hours a day on social media. But what's truly fascinating is that nearly 40% of Gen Z now prefer searching on TikTok or Instagram over Google. This isn't just a platform preference, it's a fundamental shift in how reality is processed. Beneath the absurdity lies a sophisticated, often ironic commentary on their world. If this makes total sense to you, subscribe. If it didn't, definitely subscribe. We'll decode everything. The Dada of digital anti-humor and absurdism. Let's start with the most jarring characteristic. Gen Z humor often rejects the very idea of a punchline. The humor isn't in a clever setup. It's in the randomness, the non sequitur, the jarring edit. Why is the joke funny? Often the joke is that there is no joke. This is the direct legacy of Vine energy, the chaotic 6-second videos that imprinted on a generation. Think of memes that are deep-fried and pixelated to the point of abstraction, or videos with booming, distorted audio that cut off abruptly. The humor in the viral grimace shake trend, for instance, wasn't in the milkshake. It was in the shared understanding that cutting from a sip to a bizarre, horrific scenario was for no logical reason hilarious. This is anti-humor comedy, where the expected punchline is deliberately removed and its absence becomes the new punchline. This stands in stark contrast to the dominant humor of millennials. Millennial memes were built on relatable scenarios and predictable formats like the text-over-image structure of Advice Animals or the narrative arcs of rage comics. They sought universal understanding. Gen Z's absurdism, however, finds community in shared confusion. This isn't just random for the sake of being random. It's a direct response to a world that feels increasingly chaotic and illogical. Much like the Dadaist art movement of the early 20th century was a reaction to the horrors of World War I. Gen Z's absurdism is a fitting response to the ambient anxiety of climate crisis, political polarization, and global pandemics. The evolution from static image macros to dynamic audio-visual formats on platforms like TikTok enabled this shift. Millennial humor was largely a relationship between a fixed image and variable text. Gen Z humor, however, introduces time, motion, and sound, allowing for a new layer of comedy-effective dissonance. A creator can pair a mundane video with a deeply melancholic song or a serious monologue with a goofy sound effect. This clash creates a complex emotional state that is more than just funny. It's a reflection of a generation psychologically comfortable with contradiction and ambiguity, a trait observed in studies showing Gen Z's embrace of fluid, non-binary ways of thinking. The digital looking glass meta and self-aware humor. The second pillar of Gen Z humor is its profound self-awareness. These aren't just jokes, they are jokes about the platforms they exist on and about the very act of being online. The meme knows it's a meme. This is what some analysts call referential humor, where a joke is only funny if you have a deep well of pre-existing internet knowledge. For example, a TikTok with the caption, "POV, you're a meme from 2022, watching the new 2025 trends," is incomprehensible without understanding the rapid life cycle of memes. This humor is layered, self-deprecating, and deeply aware of digital performance. A perfect case study is the canon event trend, which exploded after the film Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. On TikTok, a canon event is a formative, often embarrassing life experience that shaped who you are, like your middle school emo phase or a cringy fandom obsession. By labeling it a canon event, users frame their personal history through the lens of pop culture, acknowledging that their online identity is a curated narrative. It's a way of saying, "I can't interfere, this embarrassing thing had to happen for me to become me." Millennial memes often applied a format to a real-world situation. Gen Z's meta-humor deconstructs the format itself. A millennial might use the distracted boyfriend meme to illustrate a choice. A Gen Z creator might make a meme about the distracted boyfriend being overused or ironically use it in a way that subverts its original meaning. This reflects a generation of true social media natives. They didn't just witness the internet's creation, they grew up inside its fully formed architecture, making them fluent in its artifice. This meta-awareness is a form of advanced digital literacy. It shows an understanding of the internet not as a simple series of posts, but as a complex ecosystem with its own history, feedback loops, and algorithmic pressures. When a Gen Z creator makes a meme about memes, they are performing cultural analysis. They are hyper-aware that they are both consumers and products within the attention economy, and this self-referential humor is a way to assert critical distance and agency in a system designed to monetize their every click. The coping comedy emotion, disguised as irony. Perhaps the most significant function of Gen Z humor is as a sophisticated coping mechanism. In a world defined by what sociologist Jean Twenge calls a stark transition from millennial optimism to Gen Z pessimism, and anxiety humor has become a primary tool for emotional regulation. This isn't just dark humor, it's emotion laundered through irony. Phrases like, "I'm in my flop era," screaming, crying, throwing up, or jokes about taking a depression nap are a shared coded language. They allow Gen Z to acknowledge real struggles, anxiety, failure, existential dread without the vulnerability of earnest confession. The ironic detachment creates a protective buffer. The pinnacle of this coping comedy is the aesthetic known as Corycore. These are chaotic, often melancholic video montages that juxtapose seemingly unrelated clips, news footage, movie scenes, other memes, and influencer clips over somber music. The effect is not necessarily funny, but deeply resonant, designed to evoke a feeling of information overload, societal decay, and digital alienation. As one critic described it, it feels like people are screaming underneath, a detached surface, a perfect metaphor for Gen Z's emotional state. Millennial adulting is hard. Memes were often direct and heartfelt. Gen Z takes the same pain but adds a layer of absurdity and nihilism, framing it as both real and ridiculous. This approach serves a crucial psychological function. In a culture that values both authenticity and emotional safety, ironic humor creates a space to be vulnerable without being too vulnerable. Expressing genuine sadness might be seen as cringy or overly sentimental. But framing a period of failure as being in your flop era transforms a personal feeling into a shareable cultural object. It invites commiseration and community, not pity, creating a social feedback loop where ironically expressed pain is rewarded and reinforced. You've seen how Gen Z weaponizes irony and speed, but what's your go-to coping meme, and which meme format makes you feel the most out of the loop? Drop your favorite cursed meme format in the comments. Bonus points if it involves frog skeletons or emotional damage. The algorithmic current meme speed and remix culture. Why does it feel like by the time you understand a Gen Z meme, it's already dead? This dizzying speed is the fourth key characteristic, driven by algorithmic platforms and a deeply embedded remix culture. On TikTok, trends aren't just born, they are algorithmically accelerated. The platform's design rewards rapid consumption, replication, and reinterpretation. A sound, a dance, or a joke format can achieve massive scale and then disappear in a matter of days, a stark contrast to the months or years-long lifespan of many millennial memes. This is a direct reflection of a generation conditioned by what psychologists call the dopamine-driven reward system of continuous scrolling, which demands constant novelty. Central to this is the concept of remix culture. Gen Z creators are not passive consumers. They are active participants who deconstruct and rebuild content. Every audio clip is a potential template, every video a piece of raw material for a stitch or duet. This contrasts sharply with the more rigid formats of millennial humor. The image for Bad Luck Brian was fixed. Its rules were non-negotiable. For Gen Z, formats are fluid and ephemeral. The audio is often more important than the visual, and the meaning of a trend shifts with each new user's interpretation. This hyperspeed isn't just a byproduct of the technology, it's a form of communication in itself. The rapid obsolescence of a meme acts as a cultural timestamp. Being able to recognize and correctly use a meme that is only a few days old signals deep immersion in the culture. Using a meme that is a week old can instantly mark you as out of touch, much like using outdated slang in person. This fast cycle functions as a highly effective, if unintentional, gatekeeping mechanism. It ensures that the language of the in-group remains coded and opaque to outsiders like marketers or older generations who simply cannot maintain the pace. The speed itself carries a message: you had to be there, where there means being constantly online for the last 72 hours. The digital tribalism inside joke as identity. This brings us to the final and perhaps most crucial insight. For Gen Z, the ultimate point of humor is often not to be universally understood. It's to signal identity and forge belonging within hyper-niche communities. The joke is that you get the joke. This phenomenon is a result of what sociologists call cultural fragmentation. In a vast digital world, identity is no longer primarily shaped by singular mainstream cultural narratives, but by a splintering into countless digital tribes. A 2023 study found that 63% of European teens feel more emotionally connected to online communities than their local environments. For Gen Z, identifying with #BookTalk, a specific gaming fandom, or a lo-fi reverie aesthetic can be more meaningful than identifying with their neighborhood. In these digital tribes, understanding a niche meme or a piece of slang, like knowing what it means to be in your flop era or to mog someone in the looks-maxing community, is a form of cultural capital. It's a password that proves you belong. This is a fundamental departure from the goal of millennial humor, which often aimed for mass virality and broad relatability. Gen Z embraces exclusivity. This gatekeeping isn't always malicious. It's a natural way to create an authentic connection in an overwhelmingly large and impersonal digital space. This shift toward digital tribalism is a direct response to the decline of traditional physical third places, like community centers, malls, or local clubs. As research from scholars like Jean Twenge shows, face-to-face interaction has been increasingly replaced by online communication, yet the human need for community remains. In the absence of physical spaces, Gen Z has built them online. In a physical space, belonging is signaled by your presence. In a digital space, belonging is signaled by shared knowledge. An incomprehensible, hyper-niche meme therefore becomes the digital equivalent of a secret handshake. It proves you're part of the tribe, fostering a powerful sense of identity that may be missing offline. Conclusion: the language of digital survival. So why is Gen Z humor so weird? Because it has to be. It is a deeply logical, surprisingly sophisticated, and necessary adaptation to a world defined by digital saturation, systemic anxiety, and fragmented identity. What appears as chaos is a complex language. Its absurdity mirrors a world that often makes no sense. Its meta-awareness reflects a life lived under the constant gaze of the algorithm. Its ironic detachment is a shield, a way to process pain without being consumed by it. Its blinding speed is a sorting mechanism for a culture that never stops moving. And its exclusivity is a tool for building community in an age of isolation. For Gen Z, humor isn't just about laughing. It's survival. It's identity. It's the internet looking in the mirror and screaming, crying, throwing up, but in Comic Sans. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what it needs to be. If you've ever laughed at a meme you couldn't explain, like this video, subscribe to GENSHIFT for more cultural deep dives, and tag the friend who sends you TikToks at 2 a.m. that only make sense to you two. Let's keep decoding the internet together.